Okay, we're live. We're live. Good morning, everyone. Here in the United States, I'm Storm 331. Hope everyone's having a great day. We're back to doing more guides, speedrun guides for Fall Fight Arcade, and we're going to be covering the industrial area next, which is round 4, and probably has one of the most difficult bosses in the entire game, Rolento. So basically, we're going to be hoping this guy will be presented for anyone that's currently running this game to learn routing as well as the tricks, tips, etc. needed to get through this area pretty quickly. I mean, it's one of the more difficult areas to get through pretty quickly, but it can be done. And we're going to be it'll be there to help anyone that needs to get into speedrunning this game. So we're going to get started and go over a quick overview before we go anything else. So industrial area is pretty much the when things really start to get the uptick in difficulty. Of course, this stage, of course, was omitted in the SNES version because unfortunately they didn't have enough memory to put that in. It was later reapplied in Final Fight 1, and it's been that way since then. But anyway, the industrial area has pretty much a rough start when you're going about this area. And of course, even after you get past the flames, you still have to deal with most of the problems that come with it. And that's because the lift area is probably one of the more difficult fights in the entire game, namely because the boss of the area is pretty difficult to fight as well. As you can see here, we're pretty much blazing through this pretty easily, but it is not as easy as you think it would be. So anyway, we're going to get this guide started, so let's begin. Go ahead and restart. So one of the first things you need to do is to make sure your character does not move up or down when you go into the stage. Now, basically what happens is that when you do move up or down, you become vulnerable to the flames and it becomes more harder for you to reapply your position after that. So you have to be very careful when you're moving about this first area, because if you move out of your plane and go further down or up the axis, you're going to be susceptible to the flames and you will get hurt. Of course, the enemies also face the similar predicament as well. But they're not very smart in lining up properly. They won't get hit by the flames. Now, these two flames at the start are always set, so you can easily jump over them as seen in the demo. So if you're not comfortable about fighting all the enemies moving forward, what you can do is just lure them into this area and basically get them all defeated, because they'll just wind up running into the flames and they'll get defeated. But technically you want to move all the way over here. So it does, once all these flames make their appearance, the enemies will start appearing. So by the time the last set of flames comes in, that's when the enemies will start coming out. So the enemies you do need to defeat are the Jenkins, Simmons, the 2P, the Slash, the Roxy, and the Andori Jr. Now, it is possible to use Haggard to slam enemies into the flames, but that's not exactly as easy as it is. So as long as you stay on the plane that you're on, you won't have to worry about getting hit by the flames, except when you take a death, that is. And the problem is that it's very hard to reinsert your character in the correct position once you take a death and have to reposition your character again. Whew, almost jumped right into the flames. But yeah, you can also force all your enemies into this, and hopefully hope one of them gets, or all of them get burned during the process. But overall, you want to fight all the enemies that emerge once the flames make their rounds. You do have to be careful because enemies will be coming all over the place. So yeah, that Simmons was not part of the group, but apparently, well, that was pretty weird. So anyway, once you get through here, let me redo this again. And then once we get past that, we're going to probably do a load. Yeah, don't be afraid to whip out that extra joy if the enemies start ganging up on you. Alright. So now that we've gotten past here, we'll go ahead and save right here, and then begin the next part of the guide, which is the rest of this first part. So anyway, once you get past here, if you've taken plenty of damage and you need healing up, break this first barrel that always gives you the steak. The other two should be weapons, but there's also another chicken if your health is pretty darn low. And there's going to be some barrels that you'll need to break with your extra joy. So if you're in the middle, you can always break those. And if you need weapons, you can always get them. Now, you do have the Bill Bull and Geo Briar coming up next after this. And we do have a regular Andori joining the fight. And usually he goes for the chest bump move, charge move, so you do want to be on the lookout. Unfortunately, these enemies tend to have a nasty tendency of preventing me from moving forward. But yeah, this is basically what happens when they try to successfully stop you from going anywhere. Alright, let's try this again. But technically you want to probably move forward as much as possible. Yeah, that Andori just loves to create problems. As you can definitely tell, the enemies do a pretty darn good job of trying to stop you from advancing. Even though the game tells you to go, they love to get in front of you. Now, keep in mind, all the enemies that we're fighting here right now do not have to be needed to complete this area. So, coming up, when you do get to this area, you do have to deal with the Elgato and the Hollywood. So, you want to get rid of them as quickly as possible. Pin them to the wall or whatever. Because if these guys get their way, they're going to pretty much prevent you from doing anything else. But technically, all the enemies you see right here outside the Red Hollywoods, you'll definitely want to defeat them as quickly as possible. But yeah, technically you want to get rid of the Elgato and Hollywood as quickly as possible there. And that's all there is to that area. So now we're coming up to the final part of Industrial Area, which is where we get to fight Rolento. But in the meantime, we gotta fight the Maggear minions that come out to attack us. So anyway, the enemies are all set. There's no randomness. So you'll get your first round of Maggear minions to fight, which is this Andori Jr., Bread, Simmons, 2P, and Roxy. Now, you want to position your character out of the area where the Rolento drops the grenades. Now, you want to be quick on defeating all these enemies because Poison, Roxy, and Andori will jump in after a while. And if you're having trouble defeating them with your fist, you can always use weapons. Now, we do have Elgauras coming up. But anyway, you definitely want to keep them pinned, and we're going to be coming up to Rolento. So Rolento cannot be attacked while he's moving about. One method you can do if you're playing as Hagar, you can always move out of the way when he does the off the wall jumps. But you do want to keep an eye on what he does here, because usually when he moves forward, he'll usually go for strike you with his staff here. Now, technically, this is not the ideal method of challenging Rolento. He does have one other move, but I'm not going to be so certain that he will do it. We're trying to get him to cooperate, but anyway, when he gets to the last health bar, he'll probably start moving about pretty rapidly. Usually when he gets to low health like this. So once he goes into this, he'll start throwing out the grenades. The grenades, where they drop, depend on where your character currently is and where he decides to throw them. But technically, it's very hard to hit Rolletto when he's basically moving around like this. So if you have plenty of life to use, the extra joys are going to be your best go-to for dealing with Rolletto there. But technically, let's see if we can get. Let's try that again and see if we can force Rolletto into a position where we can easily defeat him. Technically, the ideal speed strat for fighting Rolletto is basically force him to basically jump onto the railing and then try to drop kick your character, obviously. Yeah, normally the Andori is gone by the time we fight Rolletto. But technically, we want to force Rolletto into a position where he becomes susceptible to an infinite. But yeah, he has a wire trip throw that you don't get to see the wire, but he eventually does go for it. Right now, I'm trying to get him to try to jump up. So basically, you want him to do this, and then you try to go for an infinite. Unfortunately, I failed because of all the items here. Technically, this is more easier to do with Cody and Guy than it is with Hagar. So if you're not comfortable about doing the infinite, like I showed you earlier, one method you could do is bait him into doing the wall jump. But technically, fighting Rolletto head to head is kind of tantamount losing lives pretty quickly. But yeah, you do want to take full advantage of Rolletto's grenades so that the enemies will get hit by them. And you do want to defeat all the enemies that come out to play. Don't be afraid to use weapons if you need to. But in the meantime, the general ideal is to get rid of all the enemies as quickly as possible. Because if you don't want to be dealing with them in addition to Rolletto. But yeah, that's the other method you could do. Bait him into doing his off-the-wall jump and basically counter. You can also use extra joys to attack Rolletto, but you can also use a stationary jump attack to intercept as well. As you can definitely tell, when he goes into this space, it becomes much harder to hit him. So if you have plenty of health, don't be afraid to whip out the extra joys. Because technically, once he gets done running, he becomes more susceptible to being hit. But it is not so easy to do otherwise. But technically, the ultimate goal is to always infinite Rolletto when he does the jumps up onto the upper railing, and then you could basically just go ham on the infinites. So before we close this guide, we'll cover the break the glass. But anyway, let's do this one more time, and then I'll create a restore file so we can on the bonus area. But we'll cover the bonus area next. But anyway, we'll do this one more time just to give you a general idea what you want to be doing. Unfortunately, Rolletto won't always cooperate with you. It's just the way it is sometimes with this game. Ouch. Not exactly the way I wanted to go. Yeah, you want to get rid of the Elgatos. Now, sometimes you can do an infinite right off of the staff poke. But then again, that's not as easy as it appears. Oh, oh, did you look at that? We actually got it to work. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and save right here so we can get our so we can cover the next part of the guide and the last part of it being the break of glass. So to go first things first, we're going to go over how to break the glass. So basically, your ultimate goal is to break the glass. It appears to be easy. Sometimes you'll sometimes if you're down right here, this causes it to go this way. But technically, you want to find the correct sweet spot and break each of the glass. That's easier said than done. And of course, you don't have a whole lot of time if you're going for points. But technically, that's how you do it in a casual sense. But in a speedrun setting, though, you don't have to do the breaking all the glass. You just don't. You just won't get all the bonus points. So basically, unlike the car, we can easily skip the vast majority of this bonus stage. So basically, what you want to do is do this instead. Jump all the way, and then break the last glass right here. So that basically covers the break the glass. It's pretty easy to do since you don't have to deal with all that other stuff as well. Alright, we're going to go ahead and save right here and conclude this guide. Sorry if this guide doesn't have a whole lot of information. It's pretty easy to deal with. First area, do not move from the plane you're on. That way that'll prevent you from getting hit with the flames. And then, of course, the next part will probably be the most difficult because the Andori, the Slash, and the Poison will try to do their best to stop you from advancing forward. It's very difficult to do, especially since the Andori wants to prioritize charging at you at all times. And then, of course, you got Slash that's more likely to block everything and Poison with her acrobatics. And then, of course, you got the once you get to the very end of the first part of round 4, you definitely want to prioritize getting rid of Hollywood and Elgato as quickly as possible. So that way you don't have to deal with their knife shenanigans. And that way you can just fight Brett, Simmons, and Jake right off the gate. You do have to be on the lookout for the Hollywoods that use Montalvo cocktail bombs. And then, of course, when you get into the lift, you want to defeat the enemies as quickly as you can. That makes it a lot more easier for the next round of enemies to come in. And once you get all of them taken out, you can easily fight Rolento pretty easily. Of course, getting Rolento to cooperate is kind of a tricky position because depending on whether or not he goes for the off-the-wall jump or jump onto the railing for a jump attack, you're going to find your chances of delivering infinites more harder to do. But technically, if you apply the strats that I suggest, that can probably help you as well. It's not picture perfect, but Rolento can be defeated. It just takes some practice and some memorization. But anyway, that concludes my guide for Final Fight's Round 4 Industrial Area. Next time we'll cover Round 5. Round 5 and 6 are going to be the most difficult parts of the game. And if you're aiming for 1cc's, you're going to probably find yourself resetting on both of these areas if you lose all your lives and forced to continue. This is actually one of the reasons why 1cc in this game is very difficult. But anyway, that concludes my guide. I will be back later on tonight for Shinobi around 6 p.m. Eastern Time, so be sure to look forward to that, and I will catch you all later. This is RotorStorm331 signing off. Have a great day, take care, and I will see you all next time.